increase your faith. What did Jesus mean? Well, faith is measurable in the spirit realm. Jesus said this in Luke chapter 17, verses 5 to 6. But first, I'm Brian Foster, and I'm talking about Spiritism. And in this video, I am interpreting the verses and chapters of the Bible, the New Testament, in light of what Spiritism tells us. I think many things will be revealed to you which have been a bit fuzzy before. Let me read Luke chapter 17, verses 5 and 6. The apostle said to the Lord, "Increase our faith." He replied, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it will obey you." Interesting. Could you command a mulberry to be transported to the sea? Yes. In the spirit world, you could, but you need faith. Faith in the spirit world is not blind belief, but is rooted in concrete knowledge and is boosted by willpower and the ability to focus. In the 10th level of heaven, the spirit Zabdal created a live dove from his willpower alone as an object lesson to young children. He revealed the potential power we possess as we ascend as a spirit. All is possible if we work for it. Zabdal recounted how he went to inspect certain houses and villages in the 10th level of heaven at the request of his superior, when he spoke to the Reverend G. Val Owen on December 19, 1913. First, Zabdal defines what he means by the use of the word faith. This is what he said. "According to your faith, be it unto you. This is a promise of power today as when he first said it, and it may be claimed with full assurance of fulfillment, only that faith must be present, and that the present enablement will be manifest in ways diverse, but with no uncertainty of cause and effect. Now, this is not alone to you, but to us here in these spheres progressed and progressive. It is the acquiring of faith in exercise that we study to compass, and that gotten we are powerful to help others and ourselves to enjoy. For it is delight and pleasure to give more than to receive, as he said. But do not mistake the nature of faith in the using of it. In the earth life it is of indefinite quality, as mostly understood, something between trustfulness and the right understanding of what is truth. But here, where we study all things as to their essence, we know that faith is more than this. It is power capable of scientific analysis, in a measure in correspondence with the progress made by any man. So what did he tell us? Faith in the spirit realm is power, raw power to create, transform, and destroy. Hence, only those who have been rigorously trained and tested are allowed to wield such an instrument. This is why we are on earth, to learn how to control our minds, so one day we can manage this divine power. Faith on earth, practiced by humans, is like a toy car used as a plaything by a toddler. They know the car goes to and fro, but how it works, how to command it, how to pass the driver's test, how to pay for insurance are all concepts beyond their capability. In our way, we know that faith exists. We know that to have faith means to believe, even in the absence of absolute proof, that it is enough for us to learn while we are enrolled in the campus called Earth. Later, in the spirit realm, we shall be introduced to a higher concept. One could ask, why don't we know this now? One hears the statement, why doesn't just God show himself, then we would all believe? The answer is that we are put here to learn to analyze our surroundings and the phenomena occurring around us, so we can logically deduce the presence of God and the spirit world. Then have faith of what that means to our life and our beliefs on this planet. We are being tested to determine our intellectual and emotional ability. We are being challenged to understand that faith must rest upon a firm foundation. Once we have proven to ourselves the reality of the base, The next step is for us to have faith in the logical extension of the revelation of our certainty. As an example, once we know that another world is guiding us with love and compassion, then we should interpolate that there are moral absolutes which we should follow. We should not hesitate to follow our conscience, to choose the right path, even if that means a lack of a transitory material pleasure. This is not difficult to learn, since we practice faith every day. When you wake up in the morning and drive to work, you have faith that your car will start, the roads will be passable, and that other drivers are following the rules, so you too can make your way to your destination. You aren't beset with worries that the bridge will be down or that rogue cars will ram you on your way to the office. We have faith because we see how the society we live in operates. We logically expand on what other aspects the rules of society may affect. We modify our behavior to live within the written and unwritten laws of our culture. In the same manner, we need to cultivate our faith in the supreme intelligence, to look at events, nature, our emotions and feelings, to set in stone the presence of a higher being and all of what that means. Once we internalize the doctrine of Spiritism, we understand the requirements to live by the Golden Rule. To love all, to not think ill of anyone, to understand that spirits are here on earth from many levels of maturity, and hence are learning the hard lessons of life. Only then, by exercising our faith and sacrificing worldly pleasures gained by dishonest means, can we prove to our guides that we are ready to graduate to the next level, that we are trustworthy to be given more responsibility and advanced training. Let's have an example. An example is faith as a lesson to children. This is in the spirit world. Zabdiel, wishing to illustrate what he meant by the power of faith in the spirit world, tells of the time he went to visit a house in the 10th level. The house was a home to children who had been stillborn or had died at birth. Since these precious creatures had little or no experience on earth, they were taken to a higher plane to be raised and cared for until they would be able to incarnate once again on earth. He met the guardians and went to see the children in a garden. Zabdiel stood and watched them play. Seeing they were naturally shy, he decided to entice them to come closer. This is what he wrote. One little man drew near me and began to play with my belt, for its brightness pleased him, and he was inquisitive of its metal. So I sat on a little grass bank and took him on my knee and asked him if he would choose what pretty thing the belt should bring him. He was doubtful of my meaning at first and following of my ability. But I repeated my invitation and replied, "A dove, please, you, sir?" That was very polite of him, and I told him so, and that when the little boy asked in such ways, trusting and believing, then they always get their will if that was wise and pleasing to our Father. This saying, I placed him on his feet before me and put my will to the end he desired. And presently the form of a dove was seen in the plate of the metal, which fastened the belt, and this grew in distinctiveness, until at length it expanded beyond the plate. And then I took it, and it was a live dove, which stood on my hand and cooed, and looked at me and then at the boy, as if wondering which was the parent of its being. I gave him to the lad, and he took him to his bosom, and ran to show the others what had come pass. So Zabdiel willed the dove. He conjured a living creature from the ether, universal fluid, which makes up the spiritual and physical universes. He invoked measurable energy to transform particles into a complex organism, a living creature. Only via years and years of life after life of toil and learning on earth and in the spirit world would he have been able to command such a feat. Next, Zabdiel wished to show the rest of the children what it means to desire an object and then have it appear. This is what he said. Now this was no more than bait to hook more fish. Surely they came by one and two, until a little crowd of eager faces showed up into mine, not daring so much as to ask, yet longing to be brave enough to do so. Still I waited and said not. but only smiled them back their smiles, for I was giving them a lesson in the power of faith, and the requirement of it demanded some initiative on their part. It was a little maiden who first braved to utter the wishes of herself and companions. She stepped forward and took the border of my tunic in her little dimpled hand, and looking up to me said rather tremulously, "If you please, sir," and then broke off and colored with confusion. So I hoisted her onto my shoulder and told her to ask her will. She wanted a lamb. I told her that orders were coming in some good style and growing in bulk betimes. A lamb was rather a bigger pet than a dove. Did she believe that I could give her a lamb? Her reply was very naive. She said, "If you please, sir, the others do." I laughed heartily and called them nearer, and they said, "Yes, if I can make a dove with feathers, I can make a lamb with wool on it," but they called it fur. Then I sat down again and spoke to them. I asked them if they love our Father, and they said yes, very much. For He it was who made all this beautiful land and showed people how to love them. I told them that those who loved the Father were His true children, and that if they asked Him for anything wise and good, believing He was present in His life and power, they would be able to make their wills use that power, that the thing desired would come to them. So it was not needful that I should make any more animals for them, as they could make them themselves. But, as this was rather a difficult case to begin with, I would help them. Then, at my bidding, they all thought of the lamb they wished to have, and then willed it that it should come to them. But nothing came of it, apparently, and I restrained my power within certain limitations of a purpose. After trying a while, I told them to pause. Then I explained that they were not powerful enough yet, but when they grew bigger they would be able to do even this if they continued to develop their faith in prayer and love and continued. For you have that power, only it is not yet large enough, except to do small things, and I'm going to show you that you have some of that power in you now, so that you will continue to learn your lessons from your good guardians. You have not yet sufficient power to create a living animal, but you have enough to influence one already alive to come to you. Are there any lambs on this estate? They said there were none, but there were some on an estate rather a long distance away, where they had gone on a visit a short time before. And you, I said, by faith and power, have brought one of these lambs to you. I pointed behind them, and turning, they saw a little lamb feeding on a path among the trees, a little distance away. What has he told us? Zabdal told us that the power to create is within us all, in every spirit. We need only to develop our faith and prove that we would always use our force for good and wise purposes. Our capacity to transform objects is only limited by the level of our spirituality and education. Spirits in each level of heaven are trained to master their faith and will. The Reverend G. Val Owen's mother, who resided on a lower level of heaven, talked about being a member of a group that attempted to make a lifeless statue through the power of thought. Hence, in the spirit world, as in earth, when students matriculate from one grade, they continue on to the next, and then to the next. Each level brings more complexity and information. The speed of the ascent is up to each student. Zabdal emphasizes that what he has shown the children is only the beginning for them. This is what he said. Now this may seem more or less casual according to the bent of him who reads, but it is essentials which matter. And I tell you that the pretty little lesson thus given was the spring of some cosmos, as it might be that of which your planet is a small member. It is thus the principalities and powers begin to train for mightier things. What they had seen me do was an act of creation. What they had themselves done, with some little aid from me, was the beginning of such involvement, which should lead them on to do what I had done, and then to progress, as we in these spheres do, from power to power greater still, as faith is added to little by little, as we use it in the service of Him who gives it us to enjoy. This is faith, and unseen by you, are not so clearly seen, your faith it is which, sanctified by prayer and high motive, brings to pass its own fulfillment. Use it, then, but with great care and circumspection, and all reverence, for it is one of the great trusts which he has confided to you, and to us in greater treasure, and that is no mean mark of his great love, whose name be blessed for the free bounty of his giving. Zaddiel is telling us that we shall have the opportunity to possess godlike power and omnipotence greater than we could ever imagine, and that all of this is a gift from God to allow such bounty, such responsibility. To learn more about faith and heaven, read my book, Heaven and Below, Book 1 of Spiritism, The Spirit World Revealed to an Anglican Vicar. God bless.